All right. So thanks everybody for coming. This is the Round Rock Geeks June 2015 meetup group. And today we have a presentation on collaboration, cloud collaboration with, or music collaboration in the cloud. And Robert here is going to, Robert is from the
Pittsburgh. I'm in California now, but originally from Pittsburgh.
Okay.
So,
and the company name
is Nebulous.
Nebulous.
Yeah. So
well, that's nebulous.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, I won't be talking tons of. I'll cover that a little bit, but I really, I wanted to do something interesting to everybody. So I thought I'd go into more just browser-based technology, where it's at and how it can help us achieve real-time audio processing and sharing and all that cool stuff in the browser. So a little bit about the startup company, where we're at, where we've been, where we're going, but I mainly want to focus on the technology behind it, which is pretty exciting stuff, I think. So
I think that is more in line with the people who are here, so that's perfect.
Cool. Awesome.
All right, well, I will turn it over to you.
All right, awesome. So you can all see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
No, we see you.
We're seeing your smiling face.
Whatever. I know you all want to watch me for 2 hours, but I have some interesting things on my screen too. So. Is there something I should be doing, or?
Yeah. Okay, so on your Google Hangout screen, do you have a toolbar to the left?
I do. Oh, okay. So, gotcha.
There's a screen.
I see what's going on here. Gotcha.
And then it should pop up a couple screens of what you want to share. Okay, it looks like.
I do computers, I promise.
You expect us to believe this crap?
It says all right.
All right.
So screen sharing.
So you're sharing your screen, but we're also seeing my face.
Yeah. There we go. Okay.
All right.
Now
perfect.
You should see. Awesome. Now that that's behind us. So I don't know if everybody heard about the sort of catastrophe that happened earlier. My Mac decided to crap out around lunchtime today, and it had all my slides and my demos and everything. So about an hour ago, I started throwing together a new slide deck. So that's what you'll be seeing here. So at least you'll have some things to look at. It might not be as pretty as the ones before, but we'll see how it goes. I hope that I can generate some discussion, because there are a lot less slides than there were before. There aren't the demos, so I'd love to just start discussions about whatever you guys want to. The focus of this talk is going to be real-time audio in the browser. And so that's, I'll start by talking a little bit about a startup company I founded last year, what we've been up to, the technologies we've been using, and I'll eventually get into the technologies that we've been using. So anyway, I don't know if that made any sense. I'll just start. So here's, I don't know, that's sort of how I felt when my computer crashed, so I thought I'd do that. So a little bit about me.
Always have to have the cats.
Can you guys hear me? I'm getting like kind of weird feedback, so I think people are laughing, and then I realize it's just me. So
I'm going to put us on mute, so maybe it'll cut down on the feedback.
Okay.
Because I have this big speaker under my computer here. And also,
it sounds like a very reverberant room, wherever you are.
If you want to put your screen, if you want to hit the present button, so then it goes full screen, so it's a little bit bigger on our side.
I was always too lazy to do that, but I'll do it this time.
Thank you.
Cool. And I don't hear the feedback. Awesome. Okay, so yeah, I went to Carnegie Mellon for my undergraduate. Technically didn't finish master's. I'm on leave of absence, but I'm not going back, so don't tell them that yet. Like I mentioned, I founded a company last year with some friends from CMU called Nebulous. The story behind the name is a long story, so I won't get into that. It's kind of a weird name, but we like it. So I'm actually working out in California now because startup companies don't usually pay all that much, so I need to pay my bills, so I'm out here. And yeah, so like I say in the slide here, I don't like to talk tons about myself, but you can check out my site. If there's anything else on there that you're interested in chatting about, my email is also there, and I'd love to chat about it, whatever. So feel free to shoot me an email. So the outline, for those of you who are entrepreneurial types, I'll talk a little bit about, you know, where we started as a company and where things progressed to where we're at now. But I want to get quickly into the technology behind everything that we're doing. So I'll get into that. I have some code to show you, some exciting stuff. It gets me, I'm pretty excited about it. So would love to talk as long as you guys want about it. And yeah, so there's other stuff. I didn't even list everything in the outline. That's how quickly I had to throw this together. But yeah, we'll go from there. So Nebulous is building online collaborative music arrangement software. We're all musicians, and we all had our favorite desktop-based software. So, you know, Ableton Live, Pro Tools, Logic. I'm sure all of you have heard of GarageBand at least. Even if you're not a musician, you know what GarageBand is. So there's tons of this software, and it's really good at what it does. And the one thing that none of them are good at is collaboration, especially if the people you're working with are using different systems. So I know Pro Tools and some of these other guys are trying to do collaboration amongst themselves. And there's also a couple other more recent, you know, Ohm Studio, or there are a couple other software. There's a couple other software out there that is attempting to do this, but all of them are tackling the problem of collaboration by collaborating between people using the same software. And we saw that as a big problem. You know, from personal experience, we've had to deal with other people, other musicians from time to time, and sharing music usually ends up being through email or Dropbox. And in fact, all the other musicians we talked to in building and developing and iterating on the product, we found that every single person used either Dropbox or email to share their files. And we saw this as an opportunity to create something interesting. And so we, what's my next slide? Oh yeah, little example, Postal Service. I don't know if you guys, how many of you guys know the Postal Service? They only made one album. The guy on the left is Jimmy Tamborello from Death Cab for Cutie, if you're familiar with that band. But basically the premise behind how they made their music was that one of them would start and lay down a track and then mail a CD-ROM with that track to the other guy, who would then proceed to save his track, and they'll do it back and forth. And eventually they created their first album ironically called Give Up. And that's actually what they did. They never made another album after that, although I think there is talk of them doing that again. Maybe they'll use Nebulous or some newer collaboration software this time. What's next? Yeah, we're all Carnegie Mellon here. That's me over on the left. I'm really happy about something. I don't know what it is. But yeah, this is the team. It's really kind of evolved and developed over the last year. I mean, the thing about startup companies is, you know, or Facebook's mantra, you know, move fast and break things. So we do move fast. We continue to move fast. The team changes a lot. I'm living in California now, so you can see, you know, things come up, and we handle the situations as they come up. So kind of interesting environment to work in. We took part in FOM.org, which is an international sort of community that is active once a month every year, February, as you could probably guess. And the goal is to make 14 songs in the month of February. And it didn't start out as a collaborative effort, but over the years, it's become a community of collaborators. And the collaborators are continue to use the desktop software that I mentioned, and they share their audio files over email and Dropbox. And so we actually know the founder of FOM, and we got in touch with him and got him to help us get a little bit into the community and really kind of beta test the product. So I just want to mention, we started out, we wanted to make a full-blown audio workstation in the browser, which, by the way, is possible now with some of the technologies that I'll be going through. And but we found that as a business opportunity, it didn't quite make sense. We were overbuilding. We had too many features, and we found that it wasn't focused enough on the problem that was collaboration. So we actually spent some time stripping out some of those features and just building a thing that allows musicians to share their audio files in a music-like environment. So it's part file storage and part music software. So you can check us out, nebulous.io, Nebulus, if you guys want to check that out. But I don't want this to be too much of a pitch for our company, although I'm happy to talk as much as you want about the product itself. But I do want to, this is a tech group, so I want to get into the technology that we use. Also, I think you guys are muted, so I can't hear, but feel free to unmute, interrupt, and ask a question if you want.
All right. It's probably a good thing that we're muted because we got some jackhammering going on out here at the place that we're at.
But you can hear me all right, I assume so.
Yeah, we're good to go.
All right, awesome. Yeah, shoot me a message or unmute if anyone has a question. I'm happy to answer. So, Web Audio API is sort of the new big thing in browser technology, and it hardly needs an introduction now. I think a couple years ago I gave another talk on Web Audio API, and I did the whole background thing. I talked about HTML1 through HTML4 and the various levels of audio support they provided, which is actually surprisingly little or none. Well, little support for audio, even up through HTML4. Flash was the big thing. In fact, in my last startup company, which was actually just acquired by Hal Leonard, it's a music publishing company. We used Flash, and before they wanted to acquire the software, they asked us to rewrite it in Web Audio API, using the JavaScript API that browsers now almost widely support now. So this is really the future, love it or hate it. There have been other attempts to incorporate native access of audio through JavaScript APIs. Firefox, earlier versions of Firefox attempted to really evangelize their audio data API, which I thought was really cool when it came out because it had a lot more features than the earlier versions of Web Audio API. But of course, it was only supported in Firefox. Right now, Web Audio API does everything that Audio Data API did 2 or 3 years ago, and in fact, right now in Firefox, it's unprefixed, so you can, it's widely supported, except for in IE, which shouldn't probably come as a surprise, but I think the plans are that it'll eventually add the same level of support. Or okay, so also Opera and Opera Mini, sorry, Opera users. Yeah, so that's a high level of what we're using. I was going to do some live coding and actually make some sounds, but I am not going to do that anymore because I can't. But I do have some code on here that I'll walk through. Happy to answer questions, and also there are tons of tutorials, examples online now showing what all is possible with web audio. So I'm just going to touch the things that I think are kind of neat, but it's a pretty extensive.
Hey, Robert.
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
So you're talking about JavaScript API interaction here, and I'm a novice to this part, so this might be a dumb question. I understand that there's a lot more support in HTML5 for audio and video, all of those things. How, do you see that? Because you're in this space, do you see that as the way to go, or is the JavaScript way a better way?
So in fact, we're talking about the same thing here, the HTML5 working draft, which is, I think it's still a working draft, but it is the thing that provides the specifications for the Web Audio API. So the things that the browsers then go, the browser vendors then go and implement, so that the functionality is the same across browsers, and it makes us happier as developers. But the Web Audio API is specified through the HTML5 working draft. Does that kind of make sense?
Well, it does, but
It's still too high. That's still too high level.
well, what I wouldn't, not for me, but I'm looking at.
So for instance, the audio tag, right?
Right.
The
Yeah,
audio
that's
tag.
what I was going at. Is I thought it was an HTML tag, and normally my experience with JavaScript is this is going to be a separate section of code with a JavaScript tag, and the HTML5 one, there is an actual audio tag.
Right. So so actually at Nebulous we use both. You can access. So I'll put it this way: the video and audio tags have much more limited functionality than the just plain JavaScript. Although you can access the audio tag through the Web Audio API, but the audio tag is suitable for a lot of applications, and for instance, it allows very easy streaming of audio data. So if you have, WAV PCM data that you want to stream to the browser, then it would be very easy to do through a tag. The Web Audio API usually assumes that you have, the audio files are completely present client side, and allows you to load these sounds into buffers and do more interesting things like adding filters or reverb or EQ, and perform a lot more operations that the audio tag would not allow you to do. Does that sort of answer the question, or I mean?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, cool. And I'll go into. Awesome. So yeah, I'll go into more examples of using the Web Audio API. In fact, you're not going to really see much about HTML in this talk. However, the Web Audio API does allow you to interact with the audio and video tags, which are part of the HTML5 specs. Yeah, kind of weird, but they're all in the specs there. Also the cool thing about the Web Audio API is it allows you to do a lot of these low-level operations on audio without having to even think about HTML. So you could hook up a button to a function and perform all of the audio operations in JavaScript without having to, alter the attributes of an HTML5 tag, which can be a pain, especially when you're dealing with more dynamic things. So yeah, that's that. Well, I'll go into some examples here. Before I do that, sort of the inspiration behind Web Audio was for game developers, allowing a more responsive audio environment, and also more flexibility over how you want the sound to be presented to the users. So I'll start off by saying that Web Audio allows developers to access and manipulate audio through a set of nodes, starting with what's, you could think of it, it's called a audio source node, and ending at a destination. And typically the destination is the speakers. However, and I might go into this if I don't forget, there's also a pretty widely supported offline web audio context as well that allows you to perform operations in sort of, you could, for lack of better words, bounce audio with the same API, but bounce audio to a blob or a binary object in JavaScript. I think I'm getting off topic a little bit. So basically, okay, high level Web Audio API nodes. You have a source that you can do stuff with. You send the source through some nodes to do cool stuff, maybe gain, maybe maybe like a convolution reverb or something, and then spit it out to a destination, which is typically the speakers. Now, Panner node on the right. Again, I was Googling quickly for pictures. I thought this was kind of neat. Panner node is a node that allows you to apply pan. So the arrow coming out of that may go to the destination, and you may have input that is an audio buffer. Now, everything in Web Audio API is not nodes. You have, for instance, you can change the position of a listener as well, which I haven't played around with too much, but it is independent of the audio graph that you're building as a developer, and allows you to position the listener anywhere in 3D space as well. So this, you can imagine, is very great for game developers. You have responsive audio and also audio that you can manipulate. If you compact your audio down, you can manipulate audio in space as well in a very easy way, and I have an example of that in a few slides. So I made this presentation in Google Docs, and I couldn't find the toolbar for a minute or two there, and I was too lazy to do anything, so I took a picture of my screen, and then I found it a little later. So hopefully you can all see this picture with the glare of my camera.
Yeah, hold on. Let me, can you guys see that? Is it kind of? I should have gone back had I had a few more minutes.
We can see it. You have to walk us through to tell us what it means.
Yeah, of course. I was going to walk through just to explain. I mean, I was hoping to walk through it, and I think it illustrates a little better if you're using Web Audio API, the kind of interactions you're doing. So if you can see the code, I'll walk through each line. The audio context is attached to the window in all of the browsers. Now, in some of them, they're prefixed. WebKit is still prefixed, so you could apply a shim and just set the audio context regardless of what browser you're using. So that's the first line here. We end up with the audio context being universal now after this call. The OR is kind of weirdly used in JavaScript. It basically, for those of you who've done less JavaScript, if the audio context in the first thing is null, it moves on to the next one and assigns that second thing to the window.audio context. So after this statement is over, regardless of what browser you're using, you're going to end up with the same audio context. Kind of annoying, but I guess it could be worse. So you create a new instance of audio context with the new command. However, I avoid using new in JavaScript, but you kind of have to here. Basically, now you would never want to, differently than a canvas in JavaScript. You only need to make one audio context per application. I don't see any reason why I would want to make two. Just as kind of a side note. Now with the context, this has all the basic operations. This allows you to access a lot of the things that Web Audio API provides, including, as you could see in the third line of code here, the audio buffer. So context.createBuffer allows you to create a audio buffer. And here I'm providing in the first parameter two channels. What I'm going to do, oh, I forgot to say, this is my not yet famous, however, I'm pushing hard for it. This is my hello white noise example. So a very exciting spin off of Hello World, where I create 1 second of pure white noise.
That is original.
So feel free to distribute it. It's not under any license, so you can share it with all your friends.
All right.
So what I'm doing, it's a habit now. I use _JS, which allows me to not have to use regular for loops because I'm cool like that. But basically, this is iterating through each channel, and the buffer provides access to each channel data. Now, because I created the audio buffer with, the second parameter here is sample rate, 44,100 is the default, and I've created a buffer with that many samples, so it'll be 1 second, and then I've also tell the buffer what the sample rate is of the audio data within it. So the context.createBuffer command will create a 2-channel buffer. with the sample rate of 44,100 and or 44 kilohertz, and then with 44,100 slots for the audio samples themselves. So if you're creating a buffer from, say, a WAV file, for instance, it's very easy to just strip off the header, get the sample rate, pop those into the buffer, and you can set the parameters of the create buffer function, and you end up with a nice little buffer to play things back natively in JavaScript. And here inside, in the second nested loop here, I'm going through each sample, and I'm doing math.random ×2, which allows me to create, obviously, a random number. It's called number in JavaScript between 0 and 2. I shift it down by 1 so that my samples are between -1 and 1, which is really the standard range for audio data. If it goes above or below, you end up with what's called clipping, and it's not very nice to listen to. So I pack this all into my channel data buffer.
Hello? Did we lose you?
Hello?
Hey, Robert? All right. I think we lost him there first.
Talking to a mute button.
No, he didn't go on mute. I think his bandwidth might have